Hey everybody, welcome to Monday, and you see Delilah is gracing us with our presence here. That's a nice treat. And because of Boss Fight, I have redone the Patreon graphics. So here we go, maiden voyage. Ready? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Ooh, fancy, huh? Yeah, that's pretty much the increase in production values. That is coming with Boss Fight, which is why the first one is taking so long. The only thing left to do is the captioning. If I can get it done on time, Boss Fight will be live on Thursday. Boss Fight episode 1. If I can get the captioning done. It is a slog. There is no fast way to do it. It is all manual, and it sucks. Hello, Delilah. Hi. But that's not what we're talking about today. I'm going to briefly talk about the upcoming PS5 versus Xbox, whatever they're calling it. I think they're just calling it the Xbox console wars. And there's been a lot of rumors and speculation about who's doing what and who's gonna win. And Sony has an announcement scheduled for, I believe it's June 4th. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about it. There's been a lot of rumors. At this point, most of it is just rumors. PlayStation is hinting at something fairly major regarding the drive, the SSD drive, which two things because of that. One is it will significantly improve load times to the point that we might finally have a console that performs sort of the average gaming PC that's out there right now. Hold that thought. But also, there's no way something with that kind of power in it is going to be under $500 unless they're prepared to take a massive loss. Notice I did not say it's going to be under $500. I said it won't be under $500. It won't be under $500 US unless they're willing to take a massive loss. Who knows? They might. Sony, less likely than Microsoft, but they might want to maintain their dominance in this space so they can continue to sell exclusive games. Now, remember I said, hold that thought about the PC versus, the PlayStation and all that stuff. We don't know yet, and we don't know how it's actually going to work. And if this is sort of mid-grade and they're producing... Now, these tend to be proprietary, so it doesn't do much about the price of PC parts. But I can't see a console, because they have 10-year life cycles. I get that they're trying to future-proof. But with upgrades, if PCs can get the cost of certain key components. RAM has come down a lot since what it was a few years ago. GPUs have to come down. They're ridiculous. But, they might if consoles are now a viable alternative. Now with Xbox, it's always software. You cannot go just on hardware specs alone with Xbox because they do bizarre things with their software. They bloat it and they overcomplicate it. So even though the Xbox One on paper was more powerful than the PlayStation, the baseline PlayStation, it didn't perform that way. Every time I turn my Xbox on, I'm stunned by how laggy even their first party games are. So, there's that. And that's why it's hard for me to predict what Xbox is going to do. It's very possible they will smarten the hell up and release a really good product. It's also possible they have learned nothing and they're going to try to get by with two things: bravado, which doesn't work, and as they've shown with this sort of third-party demo launches sort of thing that everybody's like, what? It's just an animation. This isn't a game, we know. We can't judge it. These are demos. Tech demos are, by their very nature, all polished and shiny. the thing that's going to keep Microsoft going is its Games Pass program. Now, Sony can very easily duplicate that. That is not a difficult model to replicate, but it is lucrative. And it's another one of these things where with subscriptions like that, people tend to want to stay with the console they have the subscription for. Now, subscription fatigue is real, and they gotta be careful not to push it too hard with these two services. And if they both have subscriptions, most people, especially with the economic realities near to medium term, people probably aren't going to sign up for both unless they're both dirt cheap. So they're going to pick one, back to Advantage PlayStation, and their exclusive titles, because then you get the rental service essentially, as well as really cool exclusives. Win-win. Now, it is possible Xbox is developing new partnerships with exclusive games that are going to blow everybody away. You'd think they'd have announced that by now if they were going to do it, which is where we have to factor in the two other major elements of video games that in this PlayStation Xbox war have been left out. A lot of people, I guess because it kind of charted its own path, leave out the Nintendo Switch, which has really become a dominant force. And if you go back to my channel about 3 years ago, when everybody was saying, oh, Nintendo's dead, the Wii U was a dud, I'm like, don't count Nintendo out. Because all they have to bring out is a console that is what the Wii U was supposed to be. They're back in the game because their IPs are so strong. And sure enough, they did with the Switch. And I mean, Joy-Con drift was real. The games don't look very good on TVs, but the price point and the convenience and the Nintendo brand, it just goes to show that you don't have to be the best with hardware specs as long as you provide experiences that, first of all, people understand, know how to get, and love. And I mean the ongoing success of Mario and Zelda and Animal Crossing. Nintendo basically releases 1 or 2 games of each of those franchises per cycle, and that's all they need to do. And then people have that console, and so they buy the other games. Never mind that Nintendo is now, it's this weird dichotomy. They're the anti-censorship platform. And I find this so interesting, because it shows what Nintendo is showing right now. And this is very important. You don't hear much talk about it. I think because people are afraid to defend fan service games. Well, I'm about to. Nintendo is showing that you can have very distinct audiences. And so far, kids are not getting into these, more adult content games that Nintendo will allow on it that the other platforms won't, because they're not searching for them. They don't know they exist. And this is the thing I've always found strange about these sort of niche titles that you don't really know about unless, you go looking. It's one thing for these platforms to say, we're not going to feature them on the store, I think that's totally fair. You don't want kids going, hey, what's this? And buying kind of porn games with their mommy or daddy's credit card. But if they're just there, available, and if somebody searches the exact title, they can find them, I don't see the problem. Other than it seems like PlayStation or Sony in general, just from how it's been explained to me, they don't understand the outrage and the hue and cry because, Japanese culture has a different relationship with the sort of sexualized media for teenagers. The standards are just totally different, culture to culture. And so they're waiting for it to die down. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't get it. And so they're just sort of listening to their American counterparts and going, all right, whatever you say. Might not be the smartest thing. However, I do not see someone, and I've gotten into debates with people like this, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I do not see meaningful numbers of people who are going to pass up a new God of War game, or, you know, another one of these a new Hideo Kojima game, or, you know, we never know what Ghost of Tsushima, though I think that's going to be current gen. It's Tsushima, right? Tsushima. I keep messing up. I'm going to learn the name because I don't want to sound like a stupid white person on this. But you never know what's going to come out of Sony first party. And the real interesting thing is that Naughty Dog is not what it was. And so that sort of every, I was going to say 2-3 years, but no, it's more like 4 or 5. They come out with 3 or 4, I'll be fair. They come out with a technical marvel of a game that sells a lot, but they don't need Naughty Dog anymore. And this is where PlayStation was smart. Yes, they had Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog did very well for them. They had a good run with the first 3 Uncharted games and the original Last of Us before they faltered on Uncharted 4 and that standalone DLC game that, even with everything that was going on with them and all the beauty of them, they managed to be boring. And it really came down to the writing, I think. Even Uncharted 3 was starting to slip. And that's what happens when writers are burned out and not happy and not allowed enough, you know, appropriate creative freedom. I think The Last of Us 2 is going to stumble. I could be wrong. It could wow everybody, even with the leaks. I think it's just too dreary and nihilistic for people's tastes right now. The world is dreary and nihilistic right now. That's why Animal Crossing did so well, right? People tend to like the opposite of what their real lives are like. But, you know, there's been so many really awesome exclusive experiences on the PS4 that we've forgotten about a lot of them. I'm looking at my shelf. Like, you remember Horizon Zero Dawn? Remember that? Awesome game. Some people are still discovering that game. Sony can put out a killer first-party AAA game per year. 2 would be nice, but 1 will do it, and that'll sell systems for them. And this is still, even with Games Pass, what Microsoft has not managed to continue. And if you had told me at the end of the Xbox 360 cycle that Xbox, like first party, like Xbox exclusive titles would completely fall apart, completely crumble, even I would have been stunned. I mean, Halo was a cultural juggernaut. And, you know, Gears of War, I thought was overall the more interesting franchise, but it was third person instead of first person, and first person was trendy at the time. But, you know, Halo 2, really solid game. Gears of War 1 and 2, super solid games. 3, still decent. I didn't like Halo 3. But they've fallen so far in terms of sheer fun factor. And I think it's just, first of all, the world's moved on. Second of all, the exclusive shooters on console are not the draw they are anymore. Those multiplayer experiences, because now you're getting like cross play and you know, cross system play, and Microsoft should have been way earlier on integration between playing on Xbox and playing on PC. They kind of missed the boat with that one. Because if you're interested in multiplayer, you play on the system your friends are on. And that's not really an issue anymore with stuff like Fortnite, right? So those barriers have come down, and you have to create really good contained experiences to sell consoles through games nowadays. And Sony does this very well, knowing that, okay, you might break even or you might lose money, very rarely, on these big, epic first-party exclusives. But then you got the console in the home. And then they buy other games. You know, they buy third-party multi-platform games on that system because they have the system. That's where they make their money, because all their development, you know, they're not responsible for third-party development costs. So I still think great single-player experiences sell systems. Who gets the multiplayer association is an indication of who the companies think are going to be dominant this cycle. It was a big deal when PlayStation got the Destiny trailer and the Call of Duty trailer. And that was before anybody in sort of the public knew how bad the Xbox One sales numbers were. We are seeing those partnerships happening with the PlayStation. So if that's an indication of anything, you know, take that for what you will. But it is still possible that by the end of this cycle, Xbox catches up again. Possibly. If they put out a decent piece of hardware now instead of that weird three-way split software architecture they did on the Xbox One. I don't know what they were thinking. There's so many design problems with the Xbox One. Have a console you can store on your side, please, without it breaking after 2 years. Is that so much to ask? Like, really? Sony's not going to make those mistakes. They really seem to be hinting. They seem to be, you know, setting expectations that they are putting out something of a premium console that's going to be more like a more affordable gaming PC than what we understand from consoles now. And let me tell you, after all the annoyances I have had with troubleshooting on Nier Automata, that's what pushed me to console gaming in the first place. I break up with PC gaming every so often because it becomes too annoying. You know, the updates to Doom have been an ass, and every single after a great launch. The first one wasn't their problem. It wasn't their fault. It was a bad NVIDIA driver. But people are telling me about the latest update, and it's like, wow, I'm glad I moved on from that game when I did. Stuff's got to run. Stuff's got to run on the PCs people have. And it's inexcusable if they don't. Yes, you know, AMD and NVIDIA, thanks. Intel and AMD, thanks. Like, that's not too much. But yes, that's a lot of fragmentation that you don't have on a console. So if Sony gets a streaming service or a game rental service, more accurately, you're downloading the games. If they can get that working, I don't know how Xbox can catch them. Unless Xbox has a lineup of titles now that, you know, they're holding on to and not saying anything about. They should probably start making announcements now, if that's true, because the people who are saving up their pennies to buy a console, if the PlayStation 5 is as expensive as their, you know, that over $500 US for the base console before you buy that second controller, if it is in that range of like $599 US, that means it's going to be like $800 bloody dollars in Canada. That's steep, right? People are going to be tapped out for a while. People are going to hesitate to get that system unless you're like me and you have to stay current because it's kind of your job. But that one's going to bite, man. Like, that is going to sting. I'm bracing myself for it now because that's a lot of money. I don't know why they don't do a cheaper version for people who don't need the crazy graphics but want the experience and don't care about load screens. Maybe it's the way it's optimized, because my understanding is that the architecture is so different for each iteration. Apparently they're addressing that this time though, so I don't know. We'll see. But I'm very excited about the reduction in load screens. I will be very interested to see how these systems handle heat. That's a big unsure thing. Now, Sony's heat exchange was absolutely brilliant on the PS4, as long as you kept that back away from the wall, right? The Xbox, less so. But I don't see Sony messing up in terms of design. It's going to be price, and it's going to be services, and not games as services. It's getting that game rental program going. And nobody expects to get, say, another God of War game for whatever it's going to be. It should be around $10 a month maximum, but their, subscriptions all seem to be up in the $12, $15, $18 range now. But, nobody expects to get that. Go buy the disc. That's fine. Or download it. But why would you download a game that big? Oh my God. Barf your internet. I'm talking like games that have been out a while that maybe you haven't got a chance to play yet, like Horizon Zero Dawn, stuff like that. Even that, though, I'd hold back. It's an excellent game and it still holds up. But I suspect it's going to be first-party AAA titles versus the streaming service versus the Switch just doing what the Switch does, and then PC gaming becoming an increasing part of the market. So what it will do, I don't think there'll be a clear winner. I think that it will become completely different types of players. Xbox will probably skew a little younger because of the cost. Adults, I play console in spurts, right? Like I'll power through one of those really great titles that I don't play on PC because I want it to run. That's how adults play. So it's like they'll work through God of War, or they'll work through Skyrim or something like that, and then they have to get back to their lives, and so they don't touch the console for a couple of months again. Whereas younger people, people in college, high school even, that subscription is very lucrative for them because it's a fixed cost that they can predict, and then they can play all the time. I think it's just going to split, and you're going to see sort of games that are more refined for those consumer bases. I really think that the era of trying to attract everybody into your ecosystem, other than with the Switch, is past. Because the Switch has an interesting niche in that I find that that's if a PC gamer is going to buy a console, they get that. One, for the exclusive, but also because it's portable. They'll play their, big AAA living room experience on their PC, and then they'll have the Switch for portability. That's an interesting market right there. That's not console players. Now, I get everything eventually. Like I said, I kind of have to. If I had to choose right now, I already have a Switch. I would probably buy the PlayStation for the exclusives because every Xbox game comes out on Windows anyway. I don't need an Xbox anymore. I can do it on my Windows PC. So why don't they just make Xbox the gaming brand for Windows PC and create some, living room Windows system? Is inefficient. You see me kind of barf in my mouth a little bit because, ideally a console would run on some sort of Linux build. But I am babbling right now. June 4th, we're going to know a lot more. That's why I'm doing this setup right now, because we need info. Enough screwing around. It's a little early, but that's usually about the time we find stuff out. I am going to be profoundly disappointed if it's another feint. If it's another fake out. Both companies need to start giving us more details now. Xbox with less hype, Sony with more freaking details. Xbox isn't going to do less hype. They're so obnoxious that way. Just the facts, guys. Just the facts. Remember the teraflops? It didn't work. All right, let's try this again. If you like this sort of content, I haven't done hardcore stuff like this in a while. It's been more cultural stuff, which I love, don't get me wrong, but this was fun. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. And Boss Fight, hopefully Thursday. More on that in the week. I will keep you guys posted.